Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I've been really excited to bring Stacey on. Stacey is kind of a multi-potentialite, as in she's an incredible artist, and you can see that reflected in her card work. In the evolution of herself, like the art of that in itself is amazing. And I've been watching her since I first got her original Southern Gothic Oracle deck, which I think I have one of you did a limited edition on your Kickstarter many years ago. And that was the first time I discovered you. Um, and it
Oh
survived the
yeah, that's
flooding.
OG.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
survived the flooding that came through Asheville. And I've just really been a big fan of yours, but also just admiring and watching you and kind of paralleling you in some capacities with building out Rage Crate as you're building out La Panthère Studios. And uh, I'm
Cool.
really always in awe at the success you've had with kind of your publishing house and the speed that you seem to move through projects. And not only are you creating your decks like the Southern Gothic Oracle series, and the Rhythm and Soul Tarot, which was one of the more recent ones, and the Southern Botanical Oracle, which I don't have yet, but I really want to get. Rose Dust and Ashes, was that one of your first ones? Because I'm not familiar with that
No,
one.
no, that one came after. That one came after Southern Botanic.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to all of I can imagine the magic that's impacted in all of them. But yeah, I'm just really fascinated with your ability to not only be an artist and be in that creation vortex, but to be successful in business, which is very rare. It's really hard to do both, and it takes a really great balance of that flow state and strategy and organization, which we can get into in a little bit. Um, but to start, I wanted to show a couple of your cards because I did pull some cards earlier from the deck. I don't want to get too deep into them. If something pops up for you about one of them, I would love to hear you share. But at the end of this
Yeah.
call, I would love for you to pull and maybe share something from a deck directly. But I wanted to show you the spread that I just pulled from the Southern Gothic Oracle, the original. So this is the Crystal Grotto, which we talked about earlier, a real place in Memphis, which is where Stacey is. Um, there is a story behind this, and I didn't realize that until we talked pre-call. But yeah, this is a real place, and it's beautiful, and your art is amazing. And then I also pulled the Mojo bag, which is fitting because I am writing a book called How to Grow Your Abundance Mojo. And
Oh,
so the
perfect.
Mojo bag is
Yeah.
perfect for me. And then this is one of the reasons why I love the feeling of your products so much, because there is you somehow infuse the southern soul of like the southeastern US into it, which is where I grew up. I'm from Tennessee, you're in Memphis. And I think even if you're not in the area, there's a way that you can feel the life of this energy through your projects. And it's a really ethereal type of light. And so you have cards like the Bayou,
Mhm.
which is really amazing. And I pulled the Alligator.
Oh, I love that guy. That's my hermit
And
card.
is it? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
the mixture of flavors in here are incredible. And then the black eyed peas. It was like the most southern we could get just going.
exactly.
So um I will say, while I'm holding these at 33 is a special number to me. The feeling of these cards in the hand is also very special. You're one of the people that when I play with decks, as everyone knows, if you have card decks, they can be infused with spirit based on the creator. And those are the ones that we really have magical and mystical experiences with. And I feel that a lot with your cards, Stacey. And also
Thank you.
just physically, like the way that you got this like velvety feel to them is incredible. So I just want
Yeah.
to throw that out there. Um, but to start, Stacey, I would love for you to take me back to kind of the first piece of art that you ever worked on that would become one of your cards, whether you knew it was going to be a card or didn't. How long ago was that? And what was that process like for you?
Oh my God. It was the shoes, the number two card.
Oh,
So
yeah.
all the cards have the numbers do have numerological alignments. So you were talking about the 33, that's a six card, and six has to do with family and togetherness. So they all have that. So number two card, pair of shoes, is basically my lover's card or my two of cups card for tarot people. And it's funny. I thought I might do a tarot deck when I first started this. I thought I'm going to do a Southern Gothic tarot. And that was the original inspiration. And I thought that the shoes would be my lover's card because it has to do with what's called foot track magic in the South. If you read about it in my very teeny tiny book, because I had very little space. And that's another thing I'm excited about is writing a longer book, but we'll get to that. But I talk about the idea of sympathetic magic and a lot of hoodoo practices, which is a uniquely African-American practice here in the South. It's a folk magic practice that comes from West Africa originally. But there's Southern magic where you can sort of attract a lover by putting something in his shoes and then pointing the shoes toward your bed. Or you can get rid of a lover who's been cheating and you want him out of your life, or an abusive spouse, by pointing his shoes away from the bed and towards the door. There are a lot of things you can do with shoes. And plus, of course, shoes match. And they look like, it's like a phrase like two peas in a pod. So everything about those dress shoes just made me think about like a Two of Cups or Lovers moment. And I just couldn't wait to paint them. And then when I wanted to paint them I'm going to try not to cry. I wanted to paint them. Everything in the deck looks very 20th century. It's supposed to look like the time that Southern Gothic literature was written, which was early 20th century, like post-Reconstruction and pre Jim Crow laws getting abolished, pre-civil rights. So it's kind of that dark period in Southern history in the first half or the first 3/4, of the 20th century. So I kept thinking about my dad, and I thought about his dress shoes. I wanted them to look like church shoes. You know what I mean? Like I feel like every Southern family, both the mom and the dad, had like their church shoes. And so those are supposed to feel like my dad's church shoes. But I was just filled with inspiration. So there's a lot of spirit in that card because that's the card that pulled me into the idea that I can do a whole deck of cards with ideas like this, because that idea took me so far, Anyway.
So that's so cool. First of all, how, like, I feel the soul in it. How did that evolve? Like, did you have a plan as in like, hey, I'm going to start painting these cards and this was the first painting, or did you start the painting and then like, maybe this is going to become a card deck?
It was all of that at once because I had just moved back to Memphis during the height of the pandemic, which was right in the middle of 2020. And, we didn't even, when we drove to our new house, we couldn't even stop at public bathrooms. It was like that moment in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Remember when it was like double masking, terror kind of stuff?
Totally. Yeah.
Right. And so I moved here and I didn't have work yet. And I thought, what am I going to do when I move to Memphis? It was like, I need a pandemic project. And I thought I would learn, or at least I already knew tarot, but I was not very serious about it. I was a Catholic collector. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to get a tarot deck that was Southern Gothic? And then I could really expand my own studies. And I searched for one and there wasn't one. And so then I was like, well, shit, because I've been a professional illustrator for 25 years. I've done record albums and children's books and all these different things. It kind of never occurred to me to do a tarot deck until the moment that I was like, how is there not a Southern tarot? Like there has to be, right? I mean, I did find Tiana McQuiller's Hoodoo Tarot, which was great. I didn't buy it though. I put it in my shopping cart and left it because I thought, if I'm really going to do this, then I don't want that affecting me, right? I didn't want that to, I didn't want to inadvertently copy her in any way or channel her. And so I thought, I'm going to save that as a special treat for when I'm done. But at least I know that in the field, there's nothing that's kind of my idea. And then I just went with it. I just dove right in, and then I did a Kickstarter. Like you do. Yeah.
That was so the point where you're talking about not purchasing that deck to not allow it to influence you is very special for me too, because I feel when I go into the project of creating a deck or writing, it can be a vortex. And if I'm doing that, if I'm allowing other outside, it does actually really affect the energy or the voice that's coming through on the deck. And I can't find that like dense core part of myself. So that's really cool. Your Kickstarter. So I'm sure you were familiar with Kickstarters and you were supporting them, but when you made that first deck, how many, I guess it took you probably a while to do all these paintings. Or maybe since you've been doing illustration a lot, you're rather quick at it, but what was the timeline like rolling that into a Kickstarter? And did you have any idea what was going to happen with the Kickstarter, like the amount of
Oh
support
my
that you were
God.
going to get?
I thought that like 9 little old ladies in Alabama might buy it. Like I was like, this is the weirdest idea. And when I would try and explain it to people, especially since not many of my other friends at the time, now that I'm in this industry, I've met so many other people who are mystically minded. But imagine telling your best friend from college who's now an accountant, like, I'm making an Oracle deck. And she's like, what's that? You know?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and it's about Southern folklore. And they're like, okay. You know, I mean, they know I'm weird, but the whole family knows I'm crazy and weird. I didn't dare tell my mother because this is like fortune telling and it's satanic. And so it's like, I can't tell my mom. I can't tell my friends because they don't get it. I wasn't really talking about it a lot. So people would be like, hey, Stace, what are you doing? And I'd be like, I'm just doing a painting project. Like, I didn't even talk about it. I was so like constipated, you know, creatively with this project because I was almost afraid to share it. I was like, what if people think I'm superstitious and weird? They already know I'm eccentric. What am I? I just didn't, I wasn't ready. Even my own kids, my adult kids were like, Mom, what have you been up to? Nothing. You know?
Right.
And then I launch a Kickstarter and they're like, when did you do this? You know? And my kids don't live at home anymore because they would have known if they were here because there were 50 paintings all over the house. These were acrylic paintings. So it was all very weird then. Like, I'm out there in the world now. I have Instagram followers, everybody knows, but there was a moment where I felt like people would think I was insane. And I haven't admitted that a lot. You've pulled that out of me. And then I did the Kickstarter again, thinking a few people would back it so that I could at least fund the making of this thing. And then I got 56,000 US dollars. And I was like, what? Pardon me? Like, I did not ever think that would happen. When I tell you nobody was more surprised than me, and these are not my friends, okay? These are strangers. You, maybe some of you, I don't know, but there's something really special about, it wasn't my mom, it wasn't my friends, it was total strangers who backed this deck. And I didn't have a name out there as an Oracle deck maker. So it's not like they were going off my reputation. They saw the pictures and they paid for it. And it was just so gratifying. It was amazing, especially coming from children's books, which are so hard to sell. It was so.
We do have some people in our group that are very familiar with you and have some of your decks and have talked about them before in our calls and in deck creators.
Yeah.
And you really, I mean, your decks are out there and they're making a difference. And I think it's because that spirit is infused in them. And I think it's really fascinating that you kind of just, flopped into the first Kickstarter and had that much success. I started my first Kickstarter around 2018 and I was pleasantly surprised and super ecstatic to raise $9,000 for that. Right. And then I did another one around the same time that you were doing
That's
this
how we
one.
met.
And that's how we met.
Cross-promoted. Yeah.
Yeah. We cross-promoted our campaigns and shared them to each other's audience. And it helped both of us a lot. And I think just to get back to that idea of you having the momentum around that, there was something really special going with your local involvement. And I know that you didn't know how all this was going to come together and how you were going to be able to manufacture. I'm sure you had an idea because you had done illustration, but I'm aware that I think you work with your husband, right? And
yes.
And he has some experience maybe on that side of things, but I'm curious how this progressed in from like you not having any idea how this was going to actually turn into a business to actually getting them printed and manufactured and delivering to people and like making sales off the backside of the Kickstarter.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if you look at my career up until now, it was, it's been great, but it's been a lot of bursts of a lot of different kinds of creativity. I'm a professionally trained graphic designer. So when I was, in my 20s and just out of college with my graphic design degree, I was doing, like really banal stuff like brochures and shit like that. The things you do when you're 23 and you need a job. Annual reports. I mean, it was horrible. Then I got into designing websites and all that. And I was never happy doing those things. I felt like I was wasting my creativity because I have little kids at home at the time, and it's like I'm using my creativity to create something that was like, I don't know, I did the annual report one year for the American Concrete Pavement Association. Like, how sad is that?
Oh my gosh. I used to work in the concrete industry and I'm very familiar
Shut
with the
up.
ACPA.
Anyway,
We
so
could
it's
get into
just
that
this
later.
ugly, it's in Times New Roman. It's very corporate, and I think
Yeah.
the reason I remember it so much is I think that must have been one of the projects where I had a complete breakdown. Like I came home and sobbed in my partner's arms. Like, I hate my life. I thought I was going to be a professional artist. I'm making corporate brochures. I don't want to live anymore. It was just horrible because when you spend all your time doing that, you don't have any creativity left at the end of the day to go paint or knit or make clothes or whatever it is you want to do. And so I felt bereft as an artist and I wanted to get into something else. So I ended up doing things like, I ended up doing large scale chalk art. I've done chalk art all over the world. You know how you go to like some of these,
Wow.
you go to like a summer fair and there's the person crawling around on the ground doing like a reproduction of Caravaggio. That was me. So I've done those. I've done those all around. Then I got into mural painting. So I've done murals in many cities. And then I became the mural lady. So I was doing murals and actually hiring other artists to do murals. So it's like I'm collecting all these ridiculous skills that don't match over the course of 20 years as a professional designer. It's like, can you lay out a children's book? Yes. Can you draw? Yes. Can you, call a printer? Yes. And it was, none of those jobs were particularly successful, mind you. I just had this selection of what seemed to be really mismatched talents until I found Oracle and tarot cards, because it turns out I kind of know how to do all of those little things. It's easy for me to make the Kickstarter page because I used to design websites. It's easy for me to paint the pictures for the cards. I love Southern folklore. I've been reading books about Southern folklore my whole life. That's always been how I relax and that's like a personal quest. And so all of these things finally came together. It's a miracle.
And yeah, you're really good at this. And you're also very good at helping other people do it. And I've noticed if you get on your publishing house website, you sell your decks, but you're also hosting lots of
Yes.
other decks created by others. And it seems like you've actually helped other people launch Kickstarter campaigns through your publishing company as well. So
That's right.
was that kind of just like a flow state thing that evolved naturally as you started? Or was that kind of a goal that you had long term anyway?
No, it was not a goal. It was, I did Southern Gothic and Southern Botanic, and then I started attending card conferences like StarCon in Florida, which is the Southern Tarot Artists and Readers Conference. Then Mystic South, which is in Atlanta, and I'll go as a vendor to sell my cards. I still go. I love these conferences, and you learn a lot at these places. They have wonderful speakers. And so I would go to either speak or sell or both. And I had a couple of people approach me and say, because the thing is, I understand that I'm very jack of all trades, master of none. That's unique to me. Many of the people I meet are wonderful painters and they've been a lot more focused than I have. And they're great painters, but they're terrible at technology. Or they're great writers, but they've never been artists, but they're very mystical and they have a lot to say as the author of a deck. So you have people who are specialists in one aspect of this, and they started to approach me. And that's kind of how it started, because I thought, well, it wouldn't be that hard to do a Kickstarter for someone else. And so the first person I helped was Nancy Hendrickson. She was a fan of mine on Instagram. She lives in California, so I hadn't met her. And plus, it was the pandemic. Even if we were neighbors, I wouldn't have met her. So it was maybe 2021-ish, could have been 22. She was making a lot of comments on my Instagram posts, and I was really fangirling her because I have her books. She is the author of Ancestral Tarot and some other books about she's a professional genealogist who's also a witch, and she's very, very wise, and she's great with ancestral magic. So she was commenting on all my posts and saying that Southern Gothic was great for ancestral work. And she was the first one who came to me and said, I've never done a deck. I can certainly write one, and I would like to write an oracle deck that goes along with my methodology for ancestral magic. And she asked me to design it. So that was the first one.
It's so cool how things evolve over time too, when you just say yes to something like that and it kind of starts unfolding. At the core of universal creativity, I'll say, that kind of flows through you. This is more of a question for your creative process in general, but I'm really curious what your, like, when you get in the flow state, what is that like for you? Like when you're doing your paintings, is it all at once and then you go to the writing? Or do you do like the writing in one painting at a time? Do you do, is everything kind of happening all at once, or
Yes.
do you have sort of a plan there? Like it's kind of organized chaos in a way for me. Maybe it is for you too. And I'm just curious what that is to, I guess, find the balance between the flow state side and the more structured, organized side to be able to be the artist and also the business, which is so
Yeah.
hard, like you were just talking about, to put those two together.
Yeah. Well, if you look at my chart, I'm a Sagittarius stellium. So there's a lot of fire in my chart. It's a lot of big fire, Prometheus energy. I had one astrologer tell me once, which is Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give it to the humans. And I love that because it's kind of the my biggest hero in life was my art teacher. And I feel like, and I was an art teacher. So I feel like there's no greater calling than to be an art teacher, to be that queen of wands who's like the mother that encourages you to make your art. You know, I'm very much an art mom. I'm like, you're going to do it. You can do it. That's why I love
Yeah.
sweet ass affirmations, because you're like that too. And so my flow state is really the painting. I love to do the writing because then I can just say everything I need to say about how that painting made me feel. But the writing is still very front of the brain for me. I'm using very much my forebrain and I'm thinking really hard. And I go into like trying to be a good student and write a good essay for my teacher kind of mode. That's not flow for me. I can do it. I love to do it and I'm glad I'm doing it, but it's not flow. Making the website, updating product amounts, you know, finalizing a Kickstarter, connecting to Stripe, all that stupid shit you have to do that's admin, that's also absolutely not flow. So that's the kind of thing I might do just after coffee on a Monday or a Tuesday morning. Then I can really focus on that part, right? And say, today is Tuesday morning. You're balanced, you've had breakfast. Now let's do all the hard things like update your social media calendar, you know, make sure that all your inventory is correct, blah, blah, blah. But then when I finally have cleared that and I feel like I don't have a huge to-do list like looming over my head anymore, like kind of look around and it's like, oh man, I got the whole afternoon to myself. That's when it's like, nobody call me, you know, and I turn everything on do not disturb and then I just paint. And that's flow, because the next thing you know, I'm being called for dinner and I'm like, is it really dinner time? Like that's real flow. Real flow is when you realize you really have to go to the bathroom and you haven't eaten because you forgot that you have a body and you forgot you're a person and because you're so completely engrossed in that story that you're telling. I only get that way with the painting, not the writing. The writing's hard.
I can relate to a lot of that. It's so
Yeah.
perfect. Just want to throw this out there for everyone who's here. If you have questions for Stacey, we are going to open it up for live Q&A after, but if you have questions along the way, feel free to post them in the chat and we're happy to ask her as well. I would love to talk a little bit about the success you found on the business side of things post building your publishing company and starting to help other people. Are there any particular places? I know we've talked obviously about Kickstarter, and I think it's one of the, I mean, to me, it's been life-changing because I've been able to create campaigns that actually raised money to purchase the decks, which I probably wouldn't have been able to afford up front, that have been a springboard for me to create all the future decks going forward. But as anyone knows who runs a Kickstarter, like, there is a part of it that can be momentous and lucky as far as hitting algorithms or getting in front of groups. But there's also another part that's actually, you have to drive traffic or it won't be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, one, just where have you found the most success with that, whether it's Kickstarter or other marketplaces? I know a lot of deck creators in my life, and some of them are like really good at Etsy. Some of them are great at maybe Amazon sales. Some of them are like more Kickstarter based and then sell through like a Shopify site like me. And I'm just curious what path that has been for you.
Well, I have actually been through a big transformation that I would love to share, which is like my own, like mentally, strategically, how I approach this. When, I just told you about a few minutes ago about when Southern Gothic Oracle, I thought it was just going to be something for a lark, and I'd get enough money to do it, and it would be like a fun pandemic project. And then my life has changed because $56,000 rolls through straight into my bank account. And I was like, what? Right. So I told you that puts a person like me in the mindset of, well, this is my job now. Kickstarter is going to be just how I make money now. Oh my gosh, people love this. I'm going to do it. Da, 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 da. And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. However, that also I have to chalk up. My ego has to accept that part of that wasn't me. It was just, we were bored during the pandemic and we all were buying stuff online. So there was very much a pandemic effect on the Kickstarters that ran in 2020, 2021, and maybe even a little bit in 22. We just all wanted to buy stuff. It felt good, So
yeah, that's when we had our huge campaign as well.
And so the thing is, once it's 2023, and last year, I'm starting to realize, oh damn, these Kickstarters are not the thing that they promised to be, because people are back living their lives now. They're on a boat, on a beach, and in a car, and they're not staring at Kickstarter anymore. So it's much harder to reach people. And I realized that I was going to have to think differently about the business. And I'm going to paint this picture with Erika Robinson's deck. If you haven't heard of Erika Robinson, it's Erika with a K. You're missing out, because she's super awesome. And she's the second author that I signed to La Panthère. And she is a Lenormand author, and she's fantastic. African-American activist, very active politically. And it was really important to her that she make a Lenormand that told not just the American story, but like the African-American story. She's like, I want all the characters to be Black, unapologetically Black, as she put it. I didn't do the art. We matched her with an artist, gorgeous paintings. And we put it out there, and I was so excited. I was like, this deck has everything. People are going to love it. And the Kickstarter was like, okay, it was not great. It was enough to get funded, but it certainly didn't go crazy. It was just enough for us to pack, to print the cards. And that was fine. And I had to apologize to Erika. I was like, I wish I had a big check to write for you. Unfortunately, most of it's going to the printer. And she was like, I get it. It's fine, or whatever. Do you know she's now our bestseller on La Panthère? Like, that deck sells every day. Every day we sell an Erika's Lenormand of Hope. If not 3.
I just posted a link to it in the chat for anyone who wants to check it out.
It's a hit. And that's because she has an active YouTube channel. And she's on it every day. She does a lot of YouTube lives. She's always doing readings, and she just has a wonderful manner about her. And plus, it is a gorgeous deck. So once people have heard of it, they do rightfully want it. So that's a great example. It was a really eye-opening example for me as an entrepreneur, not to get too hung up on the Kickstarter and the thrill of the gamble, but just to hope that go back to the original purpose of Kickstarter or BackerKit or Indiegogo or whatever you're using. The whole purpose of crowdfunding really is just to get printed. So now I don't place all my hopes and dreams into it. You know what I mean? Like, I realize it could be the Erika effect, where it can be a successful product over time. Right? I love that. That was a good lesson.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I had the exact same transformation through that process, because we did a Kickstarter in 2020 that raised 170,000, and that's like massive explosion and changed my life drastically. Right.
Yeah.
And then did the follow-up decks to that. And I think the next one was like 45,000. The next one was even lower. It was like 28. And my audience was actually growing. So you see the trend of, it's not that people weren't interested, but the trend of people buying more and more online. There's more options, more different stores. A lot of times people want things right when they purchase them. So there was this effect of like, you have to get back to the core of the people that are on Kickstarter and want to support independent creatives and artists. And the whole point of it is to fund a project so that you can print the things that you need to print without having to pay for it up front yourself. And that is still a massive help when it comes to creativity and art. And that's a really great thing to talk about, and transparency in it. And the business side of this isn't always easy. There's always hiccups. And even at the end of this, if you want to talk a little bit about the tariffs thing, Stacey, because that's one of the big hiccups that's coming as far as like, if you're importing products. But before that, I just want to mention that you have in the past, because I've asked you about this, you've done print runs in the United States. You did one at a printer, I believe was it the Memphis area or maybe
Right here
Nashville?
in Memphis. Actually,
Memphis, yeah.
take out your Southern Gothic right now, the one that
I
you
got
have.
it.
You have the old
Yeah.
one in front of you. I
Yeah,
have the
this
new
is the
one.
one he did, right?
Yeah, so
They did
that's
this
the one done by
It's
John,
super
my
nice.
buddy John Sanders. And I'm holding the one that was done in China. Well, hang on. Here's
Yeah,
what
it
I want
has
to show you though, is the edges of the cards. So here's
yeah.
what they can't do in North America. This looks like a professional card deck, right? This looks like a professional card deck because
Yeah.
when you open it and take it out of the package, it looks like a brick. It's so clean and so fresh.
Totally.
It looks like one brick, and then you break it all apart and it feels so good. Okay. Well, those were hand cut by John Sanders because there are no round cornering machines in North America. I'm going to repeat this for Donald Trump. There are no round cornering machines. So it's even if I wanted to print in the US, do you know how he did it? I got to help him actually. He would take the decks and put them in this thing that looked like a hole puncher. It was a manual thing, and he could put in about 10 cards at a time and go chunk chunk, and it did one corner, and then he would turn it and go chunk chunk.
Wow.
And turn. He had to do it 4 times, and so you do get a stack of cards that have round corners, but they're irregular and they don't pile up. Could we do that again? Sure. But like, what if I need to print 1,000 decks? Do we really think John Sanders should sit there 4,000 times going chunk chunk? Like, no.
Yeah.
And apparently the machine that's like a guillotine that cuts the whole deck like that is like 100,000 US dollars. And most printers can't afford the machine.
Gosh.
And that's why when I've called all over America, people who say they can do this kind of thing and that kind of thing, I'll call them and say, have you ever done a card deck? They're always like, no, that all gets done in China. So here we are, you know, like I've spent years calling people to see if they have the machine. Nobody has the machine. So
yeah, there's definitely limited features if you're going to do it. And we're seeing an evolution of more digital printing options that are more print on demand, but like the cost per deck is extremely high. I'm optimistic that maybe it'll get better and better over time, but if you want to do very special things, like it's almost impossible to not get the most beautiful decks. You're
never going to get gold edges in North America either.
Yeah, they're beautiful. So we have a couple comments in the chat. I want to read one from Heather. She's kind of asking about trying to learn more about Hoodoo, which has been making some high quality astro botanicals. And do you have any additional recommendations for learning more about Hoodoo and or Appalachian magic books or resources?
Absolutely, Heather. So I sell those books on my website. You don't have to buy them from me, but I just like to make them available because then people have an option to buy from a publisher instead of from Amazon. And it's also curated. So you can really see my recommendations because I'm the one who curated the La Panthère Studio website. So I'll just type it. La Panthère, by the way, is French for the panther. So if you go to lapantherestudio.com, those are the books I like. There's Hoodoo for Everyone, which I love. There are any of the Star Casas books. Star, she spells her name like this, Starrcasas, Star Casas. Of course, there's the Hoodoo Tarot by Tiana Lee McQuiller. It doesn't actually function that well as a tarot. If I were to give, it's so heavily themed that it's hard to do a tarot reading unless you know what she's talking about because there's no obvious Empress, or whatever cards. So, but it is a great learning resource. You almost can learn Hoodoo like flashcards by drawing a card and then reading the booklet. I have a lot of great Hoodoo resources on my site.
I love your website too, Stacey. Is this Shopify, by the way?
It is Shopify. Yeah.
Yeah. You've done a really, really great job of making it. It's fun. It's fun from like my perspective from the UI of like a consumer. It makes me want to check out. So you're doing a good job there. And I'm a marketing nerd, so.
Yeah, cool.
Amy says, I love this website and I love all the offerings. I'm going to be hanging out here often.
Oh, I have a discount code. Hang on. So
she also said,
the light is 15%.
Okay, yeah. Share that in the chat. There you go. You also, she also said she's launching a magic school. And do you have any recommendations for a starter deck?
Ooh, a magic school. Well, if it's Southern magic, I'm just gonna put in my plea for it to be the Southern Gothic Oracle. So I never did say this part, but I would like to add this to the original story. I did start out thinking I was going to make this a tarot, right? I thought I'm going to make a tarot that's about the South and inspired by Southern Gothic literature. Fundamentally, I ended up just saying, screw tarot. I ended up making a tarot deck later. But I was like, why do I need to use an old European system, right? That's been around and reinterpreted a million times when the South has so much magic already. Because I've got a desk full of all these great books that are both recent books, you know, like these ones I'm recommending, but also like really old books on Southern folklore, like 1940s, slightly racist books that talked about practices from that time, right? Not even slightly racist, like really racist. But I'm looking at things that were primary sources. And so I'm looking at stuff that dates back 100 years or more, you know, Zora Neale Hurston, all these wonderful things. And it's like, I see all this magic that 45 cards isn't even enough to talk about all the magical practices in the South. I don't really need the correspondences from tarot, frankly. And that's why I dropped it. I was like, I just need a blank slate. And so I would love it if you use that. And I do think, other than putting in a word for my own deck, I do think oracle cards, period, are probably a better start for people learning magic. And the reason being, they're not hard to learn, and they're heavily themed, and they're very direct. This is not to say I don't adore tarot readings. I am a tarot reader. But the thing, helps them learn inward first. Exactly. It just punches you in the face with some obvious message. You know, most oracle cards, you pull a card and it just says patience. Like, that's a great start. Affirmation cards like Heath's, you know, it's just like, do it. Or might have like the silly little animals, you know, like the unisquid or something. Like, it's like, that's going to inspire you with an idea and you can just run with it. And that teaches people to trust their own magic. I think when you're working with an antiquated, not necessarily the Rider-Waite, but let's say you have like the Marseille deck, you know, it's this old French magical, it's got this it just feels 10 steps removed from your life today, I think, if you're a beginner. I think that's something to get into later when you're really into it and you're collecting. Oracle cards are a great start for learning magic. Yes.
That was awesome. That was a great answer. I want to open this up to other questions that anyone may have. Anna, I'm not sure if you have anything in specific that you want to ask about too. And then maybe we'll move into doing some card pulls, if that sounds good for everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If you do have a question, you can totally pop your mic on and speak out loud too, if anyone wants.
I do have one question that's just popping up. I looked at your website, Stacey, and I saw that you're doing quite a bit of wholesale as well. And I feel that's something that, well, I've been kind of looking into expanding into with my own business too, but I know it's something that a lot of my clients ask about too. And it's something that is kind of hard to figure out for a lot of people. So if you want to share anything, I'd love to hear a little bit more about like how you got started with that, and if you have any tips to share on how to approach it and make it kind of an efficient process and system that actually works and that's manageable for you as a small creator as well.
And this is where my background in children's books really helped, because I already understood the wholesale process a bit. Basically, every retailer that's selling your deck is going to expect 50% off. They make 50%, you make 50%. And so I want to talk just here for a second about A, the math, and then B, why I believe my Panthère Studio is, again, the Promethean energy. I want to pay artists more than what usual publishers do. So let's talk about what usual publishers do. If they're selling to Barnes & Noble, okay, so let's just take any publishing company. I don't know, Simon & Schuster. I'm just going to use them because they can handle it. They're very big. Simon & Schuster is going to negotiate with an author and an illustrator, and they're going to get some royalty, which is going to be peanuts, by the way. And then they're going to sell the deck. Let's say the deck, because the decks are going to be very low priced. the decks are going to be like $20, not even exaggerating, maybe $30. Let's go with 30. Maybe it's a premium deck. Okay, so they're going to sell it to Barnes and Noble for $15. When you're an author or illustrator going to Simon & Schuster asking to become one of their authors, what you're negotiating on is the $15. So when they say they'll give you 5%, they're not giving you 5% of $30. They're giving you 5% of $15. The entire industry is based on that wholesale price. I mean, that wholesale price is everything. So when you're an indie, you are actually getting that 50%. When you work with Simon & Schuster, you're getting 5% of 50. In other words, 2.5% of the whole price. It's really sad. So this is why people don't realize when they buy most of the books they buy at the bookstore, when they buy, you know, decks that are mass market, that artist is getting 75 cents, y'all. That's it. And you think, well, okay, great, but they're selling 1 million of them because they're in Barnes and Noble. No, they're not. I was approached by a couple of publishers that I will not name, but they're both the big ones. And they were offering me like 5, even 10%, but 5 and 10% of what? It was 5 and 10% of half, and half was only like $9. And, you know, and then on top of that, I said, how many are you going to print? Because I thought, well, damn, if I get $1 for each one and they print 1 million, I'm a millionaire. No, they're printing about 3,000, which is more than an indie prints. But if I only get 50 cents out of $3,000, I can't make a living on that, y'all. Nobody can. Right? That's beer money. So basically, I have to look at it as an indie, and you too, Anna, is if you're going to make a deck that's indie and you're going to sell it for 40, let's say, which is a typical price for an indie deck, $40 to $50, you're going to need to have enough padding that you can still make money when you sell it to retailers at $20. If it's a $40 deck, sell it to any retailer who wants it for 20. But you should keep the price of the deck under like $10, because unless you do that, you're not going to get your $10. So I would like to see you get $10 even when it's wholesale and feel good about that every time it happens, versus being, you know, in the situation where you're getting pennies on the dollar.
Thank you for that. Yes, I definitely, I mean, I have quite a bit of experience as well, but it's something that comes up a lot, and I think it's a really good point. That's where really that whole thing about like keeping the production costs low comes in, because it's like yeah, if we're just selling on Etsy or to our own audiences, it doesn't matter as much. But as soon as we want to get into a market too that's more of a mass market, then we have to be more aligned with the like average market prices. And so those are a lot of things to consider. But yeah, I think that's definitely something we're going to be exploring more too, just because I feel it's a really antiquated system too. Like it's very inefficient. Heath, I know you called it the dinosaur. It's just, there's so much that, I mean, there's so much money that goes to all the middlemen and the people in between. And it's definitely not very interesting for those actually doing the work to bring it to life. But I still feel like there's potential there to like recreate something new that just kind of revolutionizes the whole process and makes it more interesting for everyone. So anyway, I appreciate your insights, and feel it was just interesting for me to hear from someone who does it more independently, and so it looks like you've done quite a lot in that area, so very inspired.
Well, there are 2 questions that are, you know, do I have a minimum? Amy asked. And do I use a distributor? Mona asked. I don't use a distributor because I thought about it. I was, if I do, I would probably go with Red Wheel Weiser because I have a nice relationship with them. I know people who work there. I like their policies mostly. And so that's who I would probably work with. The thing is, if I go with Red Wheel Weiser, let's say, and they distribute my decks by the thousands, why would anybody come to La Panthère to buy them from me direct? So I would basically be cannibalizing my own sales. Right now, my website is the only place you can buy Erika's Lenormand of Hope, except when people have bought wholesale from me and it's in like little metaphysical stores all over the place. So if you wander into your local crystal shop and they have a little tarot display, they might have an Erika's Lenormand of Hope. I'm totally happy to share with businesses like that. But as soon as I go with a distributor and I'm in all of these bookstores, I probably be on Amazon too, which makes me mad. I don't want to be on Amazon. So like, I may have to do that. I may have to eat my words after this whole tariff war shakes out, but we are recording this on April 10th. You know, people might be hearing this much later. And I feel like if they hear it later, they're going to have hindsight of 2020. The world fell apart. And of course, Stacey's on Amazon now. Who knows? But today we don't know because it's all unfolding as we speak. And I would rather not. So minimum for wholesale, I've tried to keep it to 6 decks, but again, so many of these little shops, you know, especially if it's little crystal shops, little book shops, which is who I love to sell to. And they're like, can I please just have 2 and see if my customers like it? I'll still do it. You know? But typically I would prefer for it to be in larger numbers, obviously.
So Stacey, how does the contact happen with the wholesale accounts? Are people contacting you and asking you? Because we get a lot of emails that are like, hey, we want to carry your products in our stores, but I've never really gone through the process of contacting stores directly to have them carry our products independently.
Yeah.
I know Fair is a great
just have
new
a Fair account. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For anyone who's not familiar with Fair, it's really a great idea that was really needed to kind of replace the old ancient who knows who dinosaur publishing, sneaky networking, whatever the hell is going on with that industry. But now it's an online platform where you can be you can upload your products as an independent, and then they just basically connect you with stores who want to buy directly from you, and they just take a small fee from that. It's really nice.
I like to call it
that where most of your
yeah,
totally. Is that mainly where you get your accounts from, or are you getting a lot of manual messages from people too?
I get the occasional, most of my international ones tend to be manual. They don't always like to use Fair, except the French ones. There's a French distributor that carries my stuff, and he prefers Fair because they have better shipping rates to France. But it just kind of depends, you know, and if it's someone local, then I'm just hand delivering. So we usually just do a PayPal exchange. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I, by and large, I'd say 75 to 88% of my wholesale is Fair. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ours is probably like 10% Fair right now, but we haven't really done anything to optimize or make ourselves look like something somebody would want through Fair. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
It's not much. It's a very small part of my business, honestly. I do a lot more direct sales than wholesale.
Yeah, same. Again, like you, probably 95% of our sales are going through our personal website, and it works to our benefit because while we are on Amazon and we have, I mean, we used to do $20,000, $30,000 months on Amazon. The core of the predatoriness of that company has really cannibalized itself in a lot of ways, but we've pulled back huge from there. And we do almost everything through Shopify. It's completely controlled. And like you were talking about earlier, like we get the margins, right? Like we can actually support ourselves and make a living doing it. And another point on just the price of the deck being higher as an indie publisher, when you do that, you give yourself room to play with marketing too. So if you're getting, 30, 40, maybe 50, some of your decks maybe have been even more expensive than that, then maybe you have an extra $10 or so to put towards marketing. I don't know if you do any of that, but we do a lot of online marketing, and it really helps drive a lot of sales for us. So I just wanted to mention that because it gives you a really good, it gives you more to play with to grow. We had Amy ask if we can do a full moon pool that's visiting us Saturday. And I thought that was funny because right when you said that, I pulled a card just out of the deck, and this is the one I pulled, which is the blue moon.
That's so cool.
I wasn't even like, I was just reading it. And also like other side of my brain was just playing with the cards. And I just had a card in my hand when I was reading it and was like, oh, that's weird. So I could read this if you want, or Stacey, you could read it, or we could pull a card specifically also, or we could do either or both, right?
Well, I'd be
Or the
happy to
full
tell you
moon
my own
coming in.
words what that card stands for.
Yeah.
So a blue moon is when you have 2 full moons in a month. We don't actually have any blue moons in 2025, I think. I think I saw that somewhere. So this coming full moon on this Saturday is not a blue moon. However, as you know from like the song, you know, of course I'm in Memphis, so
Yeah.
you know, that's a very classic Memphis song, A Blue Moon of Kentucky. But the blue moon represents, they say once in a blue moon, right? It's an expression that means rare. And so that card is about rare opportunities, having a special opportunity for something to happen. And so any full moon is about manifestation and really thinking about what has culminated. And I think the blue moon is that rare moment that you should really take advantage of, like seize the day kind of thing. So I like that card a lot.
Yeah. Beautiful. And synchronistic in a lot of ways. What's the 18? It's got the number
It's a
18. How does
9.
that relate? Yeah.
So it 1 + 8 is 9. So it's a completion, just like a full moon is the completion of a cycle. So.
And I
Yeah.
think of it in terms of a 333 as well.
Absolutely. I have a tarot deck after I've said all those bad things about tarot. I did a tarot last year. It's my most recent project is the Rhythm and Soul Tarot. Speaking of being a Memphis girl and having a song for everything. So the Rhythm and Soul is based entirely on the Southern tradition of the legacy of American music. So the 4 suits are, of course, earth, fire, air, and water, but they are also the fire suit or wands is jazz. They're the 4 foundational genres. So it's New Orleans jazz is wands, and then water or cups is blues because feelings, and then swords, air, which is usually about conflict or the life of the mind, is rock and roll, and earth, pentacles, which is about being broke or not, is country music. So it all kind of worked out. Like jazz really is about passion, and blues really is about feelings, and rock and roll is about anger. And so I was really excited when that synchronistically worked out. So that's how this deck works. And then the major arcana is basically the life of the budding musician. So it kind of covers all those genres. But
Do you want to pull
rhythm and soul?
Yeah, do that.
Okay, let's see what we got. Oh, the 3 of blues. So
Blue.
the 3, can you see it? The 3 of blues is the 3 of cups, which typically in like the Rider-Waite-Smith deck features 3 women dancing. And I basically have 3 women at a baptism, a river baptism in the South. And the 3 of cups represents like finding your family, finding your squad, or the people who really support you. It's one of my favorite cards, and I had a lot of fun differentiating both as a reader and a maker, the 3 of cups from the 3 of pentacles, because the 3 of pentacles is like finding your work group, finding people you can work with. The 3 of cups is about finding the people who love you and who it's really about family and squad goals, so to speak. And what says that more than these 3 women who are in the river, you know, singing the same hymn. So there's a very strong vibe of friendship and love.
Power.
Yeah. Which is what we can offer each other, guys, as deck makers in this uncertain future. We can be each other's support system.
Mona says I love the deck. Absolutely beautiful. Your artwork in the readings I have done with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Mona, you were one of them that already had one of Stacey's decks, right? Before. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I also have the Erika.
Oh, you have Erika. Good.
It's also beautiful. I don't even know Lenormand. I just like the artwork so much. I needed to have it.
Yeah, same. It was so hard for me to do the post because I'd have to read her book. You know, I didn't actually know what the cards meant, and then I would just say what she said. But yeah, it's great. It speaks for itself, really.
And Mona is an incredible artist as well, and she is making a tarot deck now, and it's very, very, very beautiful.
That's great.
Does anyone have any other questions for Stacey?
Well, if we put those 2 cards together, I would say our reading between Blue Moon and 3 of Blues. Oh, they're both blue too. Love that.
that's
Is
what I was
that we
getting.
have a special opportunity coming up. We have rare opportunities that are being presented. And if we rely on our support system, they will unfold and we'll understand what they are.
The lotus flower.
Yeah. Oh, for my tarot deck, girl. I was already working on it a little bit with Southern Gothic. It's been the project I play hooky with all the other decks. So a solid 2 years, because not consistently, but the whole time I was working on Roses, Dust, and Ashes, I was also working on the tarot. And when I was working on Southern Botanic, I was also working on the tarot. And then I finally applied myself to it full time after Roses, Dust, and Ashes completed. So it was a long time. Yeah.
And for those listening, the question was, I am curious about how long it took to do all the artwork for your tarot deck.
Yes. Yes.
Can we talk real quick just before we part about your upcoming deck and your Kickstarter and how everyone can kind of find that? If you have I don't know if you have the Kickstarter page live that can be followed.
Yes.
But you do have a deck
It's
coming out later
today.
this month, right?
Yeah, it's going to be later this month. It's October. Ooh, is it 28th or 29th? Sorry, April 28th or 29th, whichever one is the Tuesday, because I have a superstition about Tuesdays being good luck. So the 29th, that's it. April 29th of this month, which is less than 3 weeks away, is when I'm launching the trilogy. So the Southern Gothic Oracle had a sequel already, which was the Southern Botanic Oracle. So this is the Gothic. This is what the box looks like now. It doesn't look like Heath's box. It now has a picture on it. And then the Southern Botanic came out later. And I'm now going to release the Haunts, which is all monsters and cryptids and scary places of the South. So it's a shadow deck. It's quite spooky, and it's
the artwork is amazing.
Yeah, it's like got the Boo Hag and the Rougarou and the Hickle Snoopus and all these other cryptids, Mothman, but it also has some famous ghosts and scary places like an asylum and a scary bridge and all those great places. So it's great
Perfect for the South.
Spooky people. Yeah, I had to narrow it down. The whole damn place is spooky.
My baby mother, Ashley, my love, used to she had a TV show where she was like making cocktails in spooky places many years ago. So all throughout the South, really. So
yeah,
she'll probably love that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I
would love to. I know the link isn't live yet because you sent it to my email. And if I click it, it just takes me to the Kickstarter homepage. But once you have a follow page up, please feel free to send it to us and we can share it out and get people following the campaign before it goes live. And I'm excited to back it, and I'm excited for the deck. So if anyone has any other questions, this will be the last maybe time to ask that, and you could pop them through the chat or just pop on the audio. And if not, Stacey, just really excited to have connected with you. And I don't know if you have anything else that you want to share.
No, I'm so pleased to have been here. Thank you so much for letting me have this time with you. And we could, one of these days I want to have a really boring talk about tariffs, but I don't think that would be fun for the podcast. But I got to hash it out with some other people who understand. We'll get to it.
Yeah, in general, I think it's a very deep subject. I've been leaning into it as in I always wait a while before I really get emotionally invested, because information always changes and there's a giant kind of uprising and it's not really clear. And so I've seen mixed things coming through, and I know Anna talked a little bit to her supplier and had some information come through, but once we get a clear idea of what's happening, we're probably going to have more to talk about with that. So
we're going to 3 of Cups it.
All I can say is, if you're on the activist path, use your life force energy for this. If you're not on the activist path, because not everyone is here to be an activist, retain your life force energy for your creativity and make sure that you're not allowing it to be drained by something that's out of your control. Heather says this was a fantastic event. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who came. You're all, it really means a lot, each one of your presence. Like, you kind of hold a pillar here, and it's very special. So thanks for coming and supporting us, and Stacey, and we're excited to continue to do these in the future. And Stacey, I'm just always in awe at your creations, and I can't wait to see what manifests through you in the future, because or maybe
Awesome.
the past. I don't know which one's first. So, all the same. So
Yeah.
um,
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
yeah,